Chapter 14. The crowd cheered at the conclusion on the match, music to Saratobi's ears in the wake of both the sportsmanship presented and the outcome. Pride filled his old heart. He couldn't help but smile beneath the veil obscuring his mouth as Naruto withdrew the creature back into the mask and waved at the crowd. "An excellent opening match," said the Kazekage as he observed as well. Both combatants proved themselves to be prepared for multiple scenarios, keeping their hands hidden until necessary, a necessity in our profession. Indeed. They used the advantages bequeathed to them both well. Their resourcefulness should be taken into account when the time comes for the judgment. The fact that the young Hyuga managed to perform one of the techniques reserved for his clan's main branch and looked like he was getting ready to perform another spoke of true talent. More so because he could not have possibly been taught them, given how Saratobi had seen little break in tradition from their clan. Between him and his other apprentice from the preliminaries, it was clear that guy was doing something right with his students. Just the same, Naruto's tactical fighting had proven he was capable of utilizing the basics to an efficient degree, with the versatility that came from being without a specialization or heralding from an active clan. For all the talk of how clan-raised shinobi had more resources to work with, many detractors seemed to forget that they were also limited to a narrowed field of specialization due to how they learned to mold their chakra for their techniques. Their weaknesses become ingrained over time, such as the Hyuga being limited to close-range techniques barring few exceptions, which Naruto exploited quite well. "I must admit, I found the creature he called forth to be interesting," continued the Kazekage. "It doesn't carry the same air as a puppet, nor a summoning. It's a tool that was created by his clan and recently rediscovered. That is all that can be said on the subject for the moment. However, I imagine it will make for a good showing against your eldest son, should they meet one another in battle." Curiosity briefly danced in the foreign Kage's eyes at the mention. "Perhaps, but for now, I will content myself with the results of the next match. It is highly anticipated after all." Naruto POV. As he followed behind Neji, who was being carried to the infirmary room on a stretcher because of the poison in the corridor, Naruto winced. The ache of where he had been skinned and the soft bruising that came from where he had been smacked against the ground became pronounced with the loss of adrenaline. Despite that, he considered it a small miracle he didn't get his Tenketsu blocked and hoped that the bolstered healing from the fox would kick in soon enough. Still, he couldn't help but have a satisfied smile on his face. He had actually won his first match in front of the old man and everyone. And the people cheered for him when he did. Naruto looked down at the mask in his hands. He won because of everyone's help, even if they hadn't been prepared for that trick Neji pulled out of thin air. But it wouldn't be easy to win again now that everyone was anticipating him using Byakko, and they'd keep an eye out for the poison gas too. Even so, he won. A needling excitement spread throughout his body. He felt compelled to go tell the others and thank them. But he couldn't leave the combatants area because of the rules when it came to sabotage. Then again, a transformed shadow clone wasn't him now, was it? He created one and had it take on an unassuming appearance before handing it the mask. That would be proof to Shota, Karen and Sakura that it came from him without untransforming in the middle of the stands and getting questions thrown about. The clone then departed down a turn in the corridor while the real Naruto went the other way. There he ran across Sasuke heading in the direction he had just left to get out onto the field. "You were sloppy at the end," he said. "I hope you didn't give away everything you could do there. Otherwise our next match will be short." "Who knows?" Naruto shrugged as he walked forward. "There was more than one mask in that temple. I bet a few of them could give you a run for your money on their own." HMPH. The trademark Uchiha grin appeared on his face as he walked past his teammate. As if, "Sasuke." He turned to see Naruto staring at him, cerulean eyes tempered with earnest resolve. Naruto pressed a thumb to his forehead protector bearing their village's emblem. "More than anyone else here, I want to face you. Don't lose." The Uchiha took a moment to register the sincerity in his words before he responded. "Don't forget, I'm an Uchiha." He tapped his own resting on his forehead. "I'll wipe the floor with him, and then it'll be your turn." Audience. Naruto was amazing, wasn't he? Ayama said cheerfully, still clapping even after he had departed. Sakura breathed easier as she nodded. Despite the surprises, the first of her teammates had managed to get his victory in the tournament and came one step to his very vocal dream of becoming Hokage. It made her proud that she had done something for his sake, that she was useful. Karen, on the other hand, was shaking. Sweat dotted her paling face and her breathing was labored. It looked as though she had caught something. "What's wrong?" Ayama asked as she ran her fingers along the younger girl's face. "Are you okay?" "I just feel a bit ill with worry," she claimed, standing up. "Forgive me, I just need a moment and I'll be right back." She slipped out of the row and then ran up the stairs to the entrance of the corridors, presumably heading towards the bathroom. "I hope she'll be okay," said the ramen waitress with concern nestled with her eyes. "I'm sure she'll be fine," said a third voice. Sakura and Ayama twisted their heads towards the source to see that Kakashi had abruptly appeared. "Glad to see you both here to support the boys." Ayama was immediately smitten with his praise, a luminescent blush prominent on her face. Well, Naruto is like a little brother to me." Sakura, for her part, shifted to her immediate concerns for the next match. She had given Sasuke's bout ample thought about how it could play out, and to that end, she came to her own conclusions on what he could have been taught by their sensei. "Kakashi-sensei, did you teach him genjutsu, or how to use the lightning chakra?" A good guess." He nodded his head slightly. Sasuke's Sharingan could allow him to use the Eye of Hypnotism, but his focus is too geared towards the Eye of Insight aspect to weave a genjutsu properly. In addition, his opponent defenses are automatic regardless of his state from what we can assume. So I taught him how to utilize lightning chakra and worked on his speed so that he could match Guy's apprentice. She should have been relieved at learning that he would at least have a better chance of survival than Lee did. Yet her heart couldn't stop thundering in her chest at the prospect of him having to fight that sand shinobi. Perhaps sensing this, Kakashi leaned forward and slightly rustled her hair. "Have faith, Sakura." She nodded silently as Sasuke emerged onto the field and his opponent followed suit, landing from upon a floating cloud of sand. Karen POV. Karen held her chest, taking deep breaths as she supported herself against one of the walls within the corridors. She could feel his chakra amidst the crowd, mingling in place of an Anbu officer. Kabuto didn't move when she did, so he wasn't chasing her, but she wouldn't be able to rest in comfort unless she was very far away from here. Orochimaru was already there, having taken the Kazekage's place. She didn't know how or when he had done so, but it did explain how he had gotten sand on their side. Worse, he was in a perfect position to assassinate the Hokage with the other four who were disguised as two through the use of a technique, while the other Kage only had one guard. Wait, no. That wasn't right. There was a subtle, almost ethereal pocket of chakra beneath him, expanding like a bubble. The signature was familiar too, Naruto's tutor. Gamma was resting beneath the Hokage's somehow, hiding in his shadow, if she had to guess. She took a deep breath and forcibly ignored the familiar signatures of Orochimaru and Kabuto, which took some doing given her powers usually magnified when she was afraid to focus on threats. The refined focused on her mind's eye spread over the crowd in the arena, some of the signatures belonging to the people in the audience. A good deal of them were foreign signatures, probably sleepers, but some she recognized as the Anbu who occasionally exchanged shifts while watching her. They weren't all positioned around as guards like Kabuto was pretending to be. Instead, they were sitting with the crowd. Was the Hokage actually anticipating an attack, or were they simply having a day off? The former was the more likely scenario. In that case, assuming they had other measures in place she didn't know about, they might be able to fend off the worst of the invasion. Either way, Karen wouldn't be able to stay. If the village was destroyed, Orochimaru would displeased by her inability to bring Naruto to him, something she refused to do after everything he'd done for her, and would punish her. If the village survived, she'd be pegged as a spy soon enough. They had to do a thorough investigation on how they were infiltrated after an invasion and Karen didn't doubt at least most of the sound forces had been given specific instructions to either capture or escort her, Naruto, and Sasuke to his nearest base. All it would take was one prisoner and one T&I appointment. Then there would be one Uzumaki joining them both. There was really no choice but for her to run away. "I got so sloppy," Karen chastised herself. "I knew from the beginning and told myself that there was no happy ending, but Naruto made me so happy with how he was just so straightforwardly warm that I fell in, oh no." The realization that slowly dawned on her left her weak in her knees, forcing her to lean her back on the wall and slide down it until she was curled up. I fell in love with him, didn't I? Or at least as close as love got for her. It wasn't like she had much experience besides the familial love that she had for her mother. The affection she felt for Naruto was different in irrefutable ways. She couldn't mistake one for another. The boy was a year her junior, not much to look at, and didn't have much to his name. But she liked his personality, how he was so bright in life, and the texture of his chakra. He never asked her for anything and gave her everything, from his trust to the sort of life you wished she could have had. She was happier around him than she had been in a long time, a sort of happiness that she did her best to make sure he got to experience as well by helping him. Her focus then shifted to the signature coming down the corridor, the familiar warmth undeniable. It was Naruto, or a clone of him judging by the chakra level. He was in a rush, even though she couldn't feel anyone chasing him, and turned the corner into view. "What are you doing here, Naruto?" Karen asked as she wiped her eyes. "You shouldn't be breaking the rules like this by coming here." "You knew it was me?" he asked. She recognized her mistake when she looked up and saw his transformed brows closing in and looking pensive. It was another sloppy mistake on her part. She hadn't been looking and recognized his chakra before his appearance. Karen bit her lower lip and thought of what lie to tell and then decided against it. This was a clone, not the original, and she was getting ready to run away while everyone was distracted with the most anticipated match of the finals. This could be her last chance to see Naruto in any shape or form, and if she went without getting everything off her chest, it would only weigh her down further. She needed closure. That would be the best way to describe it, to know if her feelings would have been reciprocated or rejected. Either one would be fine, as long as she didn't have to think on the endless what-ifs that came from not getting an answer. "I'm a sensor, Naruto." She stood up and pushed herself off the wall. "I can sense your chakra, whether or not you're transformed. We're alone so you can drop it." The clone did as told and dropped the transformation and revealed a mirror-perfect image of the lovable blonde she had come to know. In his hands was Byaku's mask. "That's amazing, Karen-chan. I had bought this so you wouldn't be surprised, but I guess I didn't need to." "You mean the original you," she corrected him. "Shadow clones are really amazing. You look just like him, down to the last detail. So you can sense that too." He scratched at his cheek. It seemed like he was unsure of whether or not he should feel complimented when he was a clone. "Will you listen to me?" she asked. "I have something important I want to say, and I want you to listen to the end and be honest with me. Okay? I guess I can, but you'd really be better off talking to the original if it's that important. I'm too much of a coward to do that, too much of a coward to do anything else besides run away." She took a deep breath and then looked him square into his peerless cerulean eyes. "Naruto, I was told to capture you by a very bad man." His expression went from confused to wary almost immediately. "What do you mean?" "When you told me your name in the forest, I wanted to know more about my clan, but the village I was with wouldn't let me stay unless I agreed to send them information. But, in truth, I was a spy for another person and only joined them because he told me to a year ago. He told me that I was supposed to knock you out and bring you with me to him while something bad happened during the finals." So, he swallowed and his breathing staggered. He was afraid to ask. "Everything we did was just to get close to me?" "It was real, if that's what you're asking," she claimed. "I did things for you because I wanted to, not just because of my orders. I wish I could say that it wasn't tainted by the fact that he told me to get close to you, but it is. I just wanted to get to know you and they poisoned that innocent wish. Believe me, Naruto. Please." The clone licked his lips, trying to form the words. Were you going to actually do it?" She slowly shook her head. "Naruto, this man and his apprentice are terrifying. I'm scared of them both. But I can't take you to them knowing how they'd hurt you. I wouldn't wish that on my asshole teammates, let alone you. But if I don't bring you in then they'll punish me." "What will they do to you?" he asked. "If you don't bring me, I mean? Who knows?" She brushed her hair behind her left ear and looked down at where he had bitten her weeks ago. "I'm useful, but they don't need my mind intact. Maybe they just mess with my head until I was a brainless husk that they used to keep experiments alive, if I was lucky." "Well, what about the old man?" The clone nodded as he strung his thoughts together. "Yeah, we can go to him together. He'll protect you." "I can't." She'd already thought about how that would end. "The penalty might be reduced to a long prison sentence if the information I knew was minimal, but you saw the scars on that man's head during the written exam from being tortured for information. The information I have is considered S-class in terms of secrecy and who I was spying for, so they'd execute me after they got what they wanted however they could." "S-class," he seemed to pale at that. "You don't mean, I never cared, that you're a Jinchuriki, if that's what you're getting at." Her fingers reached up and gently stroked his cheek. She felt a slight pang in her heart when he flinched at her touch, but continued. "You're not like that, Gara. You're in control of yourself and your seal is better. I never once felt threatened around you. In fact, I'm in love with you." The clone stood there, dumbfounded at the admission with his mouth partly opened. He didn't know how to respond to that. Even so, Karen continued to vent her feelings to him. "I've fallen in love with you." Her voice cracked at the end, and the tears clawed their way out from behind her eyes. "I'm happy being around you, and I want to make you happy. The thought of living in this village and being with you made me so excited and miserable at the same time because it was a dream that I knew wouldn't come true." She clung to him tightly, clenching the back of his jumpsuit and crying miserably on his shoulder. "Why did I have to meet you? Why did you have to make me feel this way when it could only end badly? It's like I'm being punished for wanting to know more about my people and you, mocking me with promises of what could have been." Naruto's clone went rigid for a moment, stilling his lungs and tensing his muscles as if to shake her off. Then he embraced her and patted her on the back in silence. It was all he could do. Karen pulled herself together after a minute or so. She leaned back so that she faced him properly, so close their foreheads could touch. "That's why I'm running away now, while I can. I can't betray you, and I can't stay here. So I'll disappear and run until I find someplace they hopefully can't find me. Don't go." There was a strained hitch in his voice. "We'll find some way for it to work out. You didn't want to do anything bad. You didn't have a choice, right? I can't." Her fingers found themselves on the back of his head, nestled in his hair. "We won't see each other again. I'm too much of a coward to risk staying and too ashamed to even admit it to the real you. Even now, I just wanted to know if you'd forgive me for everything. The real me would." There was no doubt in his voice. "Please, don't." She silenced him with a kiss, pressing against his lips in a fevered and desperate attempt to capture a moment that would never come again. While the clone was distracted with the kiss, to the extent of dropping the mask, she pulled out a kunai as stealthily as possible. She didn't want him to see it coming or see his face distorting when she eventually plunged it into his body, clone or not. So she embraced him after breaking the kiss and whispered gently into his ear. "Thank you for everything, Naruto." Then she used the kunai on his unprotected back and it dispersed, leaving only the mask to show that the clone once existed. Bayako was fast, and she was a sensor on the cusp of a full-on invasion. Between the both of them, she could hopefully be well outside of the Land of Fire's borders quickly and without being detected. She picked up the mask and ran towards the exit while the crowd roared at the start of the match. "Goodbye forever, Naruto." End of chapter 14.